We are ready.
We're ready. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the April session of the Special Magistrate for Code Enforcement for the City of Oviedo is now in session. I'm Howard Marcy. I am the Special Magistrate for the City of Oviedo. We have two cases on the agenda today, and we do require anyone that appears before us to be administered the oath. So anyone who plans on speaking today, if you'd please step forward and raise your right hand. First, let's identify yourself, if you would, starting here at the left.
Jim Morales, Code Enforcement Officer, City of Oviedo. Sean O'Rourke, Code Enforcement Manager, City of Oviedo. Good morning, Your Honor. James Cuccinella, owner of Jalen Properties, 254 North Division. Kevin Quinona.
Okay.
David Jackson, all my kids.
All right. Keep your right hand raised. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you shall give today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, everyone has said I do. All right, the first case we'll take up is case number CE 16-000252. Involves Jalen Properties, LLC. Apparently it involves property at 254 North Division Street in Oviedo, 32765. Parcel ID number is 102130063000000. The allegation is violation of Section 3.3 of the Land Development Code. Who is going to be presenting the case on behalf of the city? All right, Mr. O'Rourke.
Your Honor, Sean O'Rourke, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Oviedo. I have a evidence packet of 16 pages for the court and the respondent. May I approach?
Yes, please do. All right, and the respondent has a copy? Okay. Give the respondent a minute or two to review this. All right. Any objections to the evidence being offered by the city? Well, you'll be given an opportunity to speak. I just want to know if there's anything in this package that you find objection. No. Okay. All right. Here, you understand that you're going to be given a chance to speak. All I'm asking you right now is whether any document in this is a document that does not pertain to your property.
Yeah, there's a question.
Okay, what is that question? Please step up to the microphone.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Yeah, you can raise that microphone, son.
morning. My name is James Cuccinella. I'm the owner of the property, sir. And I'm a high school teacher. My apologies to my students for not being there today. We'll double our efforts tomorrow. Your Honor, there was the pastor and I, who is the tenant of the property. We looked at one piece of one page here, and we noted that this was a...
Which page are you looking at? The photograph?
It would be the photograph. It would be page 3 of the packet that I was given. Yes, sir. The upstairs of this facility is zoned storage and office.
My question, sir.
Yes,
what
sir.
about, is this an accurate depiction of your premises?
It is, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm really addressing right now. You'll
Okay.
have a chance to go into the rest later. I just want to know if there's anything in this package that does not accurately, is not an accurate document.
The picture was taken by a random person, and it wasn't any representative of the business or the owner of the property.
Is this a photograph of the second floor?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll have another chance to speak.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to accept the 16 pages into evidence as the city's Exhibit 1. Mr. Rourke, go ahead.
Your Honor, the first item in your packet is a building permit application from 2015. If you'll notice the highlighted portion for the description of work, it was a change in use of the first floor to restaurant mercantile and to create access with a spiral staircase to the second floor, which will be used for office and storage. This was the result of a code enforcement action that took place in June of 2015. The plans, a portion of the plans submitted are on page 2, showing the second floor being storage. And those were approved by the city, and that building permit was issued. In January 18th of 2016, the fire marshal for the city of Oviedo, Ms. Ginsburg, produced this document number 3 from Facebook. And if I could just point out the line that is highlighted, it says there's plenty of parking across the street and lots of seating upstairs if you can get up the spiral staircase. The fire marshal came to me the next day on the 19th, showed me this photograph, reminded me that we had issued a permit for the change in use for the first floor, and the second floor was to be storage. Based on this information, I sent a notice of violation on January 22nd, 2016 to the property owner, and that's item 4 in your packet, and it was for the site development order for renovation change in use. We gave a corrective action to cease and desist the use of the second floor for anything other than storage, as provided upon receipt of the notice from and schedule inspection with building, fire, and code enforcement to verify compliance.
Let me stop and ask you a question
Sure.
right there, Mr. Rourke. I see the corrective action for anything other than storage. I see the original permit or application for permit sought it for use for office and storage. Was it ever permitted for upstairs office?
It was permitted for minimal office use with a maximum occupancy.
Okay, so
of
either
3
office
persons.
or storage would be consistent with the CO?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We never did receive, neither myself, building, or fire, received any information about compliance or an offer to inspect. Item 5 is the certified mail receipt. Item 6 is the letter that was returned unclaimed. Item 7 is a change, a building permit application dated January 27th of 2016. And this is the result of our notice that went out. We had a change in secretarial help at the time. I believe the notice was sent first class mail and posted, but I do not have a record of that. But it is apparent from the fact that on the 27th, they came in to change the use from storage to retail, that they were aware that there was an issue with the second floor. That particular permit was denied on February 16th, and that's what you see on page 8. The fire had a number of denials, one being the spiral staircase inside could not be used as an exit. And on the second page, which is page 9 of your packet, the building department denied it based on the following: provide vertical accessibility according to the accessibility code, and using this space for sitting of occupants, this exception is no longer applicable. These were the comments from building. We did not hear anything from the respondents until the first week of April, when Mr. Cuccinella came in to City Hall to the office, and I spoke to him and told him that we were preparing to send a notice of hearing on the property. He advised me that they had applied for a waiver with the state, and it was tentatively scheduled for April 15th. I told him that if he got me an email with all the appropriate data from the state, that I would consider not taking the matter to the magistrate. I did not get that email, so I went ahead and sent the notice of hearing. Well, this is a little out of order, but I sent the notice of hearing, which is page 13, and page 14 is the second part of it, page 15 is a certified mail, and page 16 is a green card that shows it was received. Going back to page 10, there is a series of emails on the 14th. If you look at the bottom email, it was at 8:05, and Mr. Cuccinella is sending this email to the pastor saying, mentioned you before I went to North Carolina, we need to speak with Sean O'Rourke and explain that until we hear from the commission, the change in use is approved, change of use is approved, that the upstairs should not be used, should be closed to customers. And then there's an email on top to me that came later that morning, 8:45, and it's me responding to Mr. Cuccinella, telling him that when we had spoke earlier and the state was going to meet on the 15th, you were going to send me an email. I explained to him that I didn't get it, so I went ahead and sent the notice of hearing, and it's now scheduled for April 28th. Mr. Cuccinella replied. I told him the application for waiver, this is on page 11, the email, that the application for waiver and the city's code enforcement actions were separate, that we were going to move forward. Mr. Cuccinella provided an email that came from the state to him showing that the application, the waiver application, was marked pending staff review. So that's the status of it. And again, page 13, 14 are the notice of hearing, 15 is the certified mail receipt, and page 16 shows that the notice was delivered. Your Honor, this use of the second floor was addressed back in 2015, and a permit was issued and approved by the city for storage, and then we have a situation where the property was not used for storage, it was used for assembly with no ADA requirements met, no accessibility.
Is the problem with the use of the second floor the lack of compliance with ADA?
That and the use being approved, fees for impact fees for the additional space for assembly, things like that. Fire may have a separation requirement.
Is it a violation of fire code with what they have?
Right now, the main violation is the change in use. And when they apply for the change in use, the second time, the fire comments, they were denied based on a number of things. That was on page 16. And their denial comments were for incorrect calculations, provided a sticker for the roof, so they seem to be fairly minor other than the lights and the spiral staircase. I don't know how that fire would address the spiral staircase, because all they
This is
did
an
was
exterior
prove it.
staircase? Or
Internal.
Internal.
So they would have to address those comments with fire and go further. Right now, fire has only provided comments saying it's denied, and I don't know what the status is, if they've gotten anything back.
Do we have any idea how long it's going to take to get a decision from the state?
My understanding is, and obviously I'm sure they'll testify, that the application for waiver has been made to the state, and that I believe a date has been set in May for the state to determine whether, basically it's going to determine whether they have to provide accessibility with a elevator to the second floor, as I understand it. And if the state gives them a waiver, then the city will move forward with the approval of the permit.
Okay, so if the respondent is able to provide the city with a waiver from the state, then the city would consider their application to convert the top floor to what, retail?
To, I don't know what they,
I mean, what did their application say?
their application was for retail seating.
Yeah, retail seating. With a waiver from the state, do you foresee, I realize you can't forecast the future because you're not the person making the decision necessarily.
Correct.
Can you give us any idea what the city is apt to do given a waiver from the state?
I have not asked that question of the building department or fire department. I don't think they would comment until they knew what the ruling from the state was, if there were any parameters to the ruling, if there were any conditions with the ruling, and then they would go forward with their review.
So the waiver from the state doesn't automatically put to rest the violation. They would still be in violation absent an amendment to their CO.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. O'Rourke?
No, sir.
All right. Who wants to speak on behalf of J. Lynn Properties? Mr. Cuccinella?
May we speak together, or would you like it separately, Your Honor?
Well, why don't you take turns? I mean, if you want to stand together, that's okay. But for the record, it'll be a lot clearer if we know who's speaking at one time. So let one of you take the lead, and then the other one can.
May I approach the bench, Your Honor?
Yes. All right. I'm looking now at a laptop that has a photograph of what looks to be the first floor of a spiral staircase, and has some placard there, but I can't read it. What does it say?
It says temporarily closed.
Temporarily closed. All right.
If I may, Kevin Quinones. Your Honor.
Kevin Quinones?
Quinones, yes, sir.
Okay, Quinones.
Ones.
Okay, sir. Go. And what is your relationship to J. Lynn?
I'm the tenant, I guess you could say, of the building, of the property.
Okay.
I am the pastor of the church located across the street. We've rented the building from J. Lynn Properties for the purpose of opening a coffee shop and outreach.
So you're the tenant?
Yes.
Okay.
The purpose of it was a community outreach. It's a not-for-profit. It's not a money-making. It's not somebody trying to build a business to make a profit or make a living or support their family or anything like that. It's a community outreach. High school kids, college kids coming, studying, drinking coffee, that kind of
But you
environment.
charge for the coffee and so forth?
There is no charge. It's a nonprofit, so donation based.
Okay.
We have people that give nothing and people that give something.
Okay.
They're suggested donations, though. Yes. So it's a branch of the church. The
right.
Kiowan Coffee is a DBA doing business as Kiowan, but it's owned. It's really River of Life Church. The image that Mr. O'Rourke presented is not an image. It is an image from Facebook that a random person took and posted, nobody representing the church or the coffee shop, nobody associated with the church or the coffee shop. So, you know, it's saying lots of seating upstairs. If you can get up the spiral staircase, that's not us saying that. There is a small little conference room up there, though, that we do some meetings in, things like that, the office component of it. Back when...
But the photograph is accurate. It
is accurate. There's no
depiction
people.
of what's
There's no
on-
people up there, though, so there's no more than 3 people
Okay,
there.
but it's an accurate depiction of what's on
Of
the
what it
second-
looks like upstairs.
Okay.
Certainly,
Good.
yes. There is also an exterior staircase. I know that was just a question regarding the spiral staircase being inside, outside. There is an exterior staircase from the second floor that, if permitted the exemption from the state, my understanding is we would be required to utilize and have accessible so that if something in the event of an emergency, there is the exterior staircase available, which would take care of any fire and building things. Now, Mr. Cuccinella can speak more definitively to the notices as well as to the talking with the individuals in the building department. But from my point of view, I became more aware of what was going on earlier this month when he sent me the email, and then Mr. O'Rourke and him began to email exchange. That's when we said, okay, well, let's put the temporarily closed sign there, to create a non-issue about it. My understanding, and again, I probably was way off base, was because we were dealing with the city on the building component of trying to get the permit, and and it was the building department who told us, hey, here's your best option is to go to the state and get an exemption. And so we just thought a non-issue while we were in the process. And so once it became very clear to me in April that it was an issue, we decided to put the temporary closed sign up. But I'll let Mr. Cuccinella speak to some of the other components.
Well, let me ask you a few questions first.
Sir.
Has the state given you any idea when you may expect either a hearing or a decision?
That would be Mr. Cuccinella.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Cuccinella?
Yes, Your
Spell
Honor.
your last name, please.
Cuccinella.
All right, sir. Go ahead. And you are a representative of J-Lin.
Yes,
LLC.
I am.
All right, go ahead.
Manager. Yes. Could I just give a little history? I don't want
Sure.
to waste your time, but
Whatever you want to do.
thank you very much, Your Honor. First of all, let me just say we're strong proponents of code enforcement. Thank goodness we have that in the city of Oviedo. There's certainly abuses that could happen without it, and we're both as responsible people in the city and in charge of entities in the city that, we are certainly proponents, and we admire the work that Mr. O'Rourke does, and there's really not a strong dispute against that or anything. But what I would say is a little piece of the history is that we have a nonprofit business associated with the church that is providing a beautiful service to UCF and Oviedo High School students. Now, nobody can foresee the future, and we had mercantile use on the first floor, and as things would happen, the place became busy. And the students began showing up, and they wanted to do their studies and have access to Wi-Fi and fellowship with each other. So during this is a timeline kind of a thing, and I would say the left hand maybe didn't know what the right hand was doing in some of these instances here, because unfortunately, I didn't have having a full-time position as a teacher. That I don't have the time ability to be there all the time to view what's going on with the property. But as I received first notice, and it was hearsay through one of my trips to the building department, and I have to go back and say this, and I hold my students responsible. When I give an assignment, I expect it to be turned in. But let me just say this: when I received a notice that there was a letter for me from the city of Oviedo, and I'm under oath right now, so I'm going to give you the complete truth on this. I took the notice to the post office on Central Avenue, and when I took the notice there, the clerk went in the back and she looked for the certified letter, and she said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't have that. It could be that it's still on the truck." So I didn't go promptly back the next day, and unfortunately, it sat in my truck for a while. And when I did go back, the clerk said to me, "We no longer have this letter. I don't have it." So there was a miscommunication, if you will, at that point with the letter. Now, with my communication and with my communication with the building department, I did learn that, hey, you guys have got to be careful. You may have people that are going upstairs, and you want to be careful. That's not zoned for that until we get this change of use through. Then we need to ensure that the public is not using the upstairs. And so, in the spirit of that, the pastor and I, we of course had discussions about it, and unfortunately, until I received the actual documentation for the hearing, then there was no physical barrier to keep students from creeping, if you will, to the upstairs. Now, are they up there? Were they up there? I mean, I have to assume that they would have been able to go up because there wasn't a physical sign. So what I'm saying is that there was a communication, and first of all, not getting the notice, and then second of all, that, well, hey, don't go up there, kind of a thing, but kids are kids, and they're going to do what they're going to do sometimes. So, and if we're at fault, then I would put that fault of not being precisely blockading, if you will, the access for people to go up.
But as of right now, people are not using the
No,
second
sir.
story.
No, there is a blockade for them to use that. And sir,
I'm more concerned about today than yesterday on that. So I'm more concerned about today
Yes,
than
sir.
yesterday
Oh,
on
thank
that.
you.
So
Okay, yes, sir.
You can sort of take that concern out of your mind.
Okay, great. Well, that's wonderful. So our intentions are to proceed with the hearing, and I do have I brought that documentation for the waiver application with the state of Florida and the Accessibility Council, and their calendar, which I will give you if you'd like that, appears to show that the meeting for our hearing will be on the 31st of May. So what we have here is we have a situation that could certainly hurt the operation of the coffee shop, because now we have a restriction, of course, and in any overflow that we have, well, people will have to be restricted to the seating that we have downstairs. We also provided picnic tables outside, and with the barrier in place, that will have to make do until this decision is made by that council in Tallahassee.
Okay.
Here's the full application. Their meeting date is...
Are these my copies to keep?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. Let me take a look at these. Let me take a look at these first, sir.
Yes, sir.
Looks like 14 pages. Any objections from the city? Those documents being admitted into evidence. The 14 pages offered by respondent is hereby admitted into evidence, will become a part of the record. All right, go ahead, Mr. Cuccinello.
Sir, in conclusion, I would just like to say that we would like to proceed legally and responsibly in this matter, and proceed with our application. We feel that we have I've spoken to the building department here in the city of Oviedo, and they can't make a judgment on that, but there are precedent. There are several other businesses in the city of Oviedo that have gotten this waiver, and it appears that we may be in play on this because we have a similar type of situation that they have, and they were approved for this waiver. Number one, if you'd like me to go into that a ramp to go up 110 inches to the second floor would require 80 feet of ramp. We have easement restrictions on that piece of property, and it's not feasible to put a ramp in for a wheelchair. And the second option would be an outside elevator. There's certainly no room on the interior to put an elevator, so the outside elevator would have to be imposed on a building that has a value of about $78,000, which was the purchase price of the building. So it's not a big piece of property. It's a very small piece of property, and I myself have never seen anything like that before in my travels. And so we feel that we have a good case to make the same services, and we certainly don't want to withhold services from any of our wonderful war veterans or anyone who might find themselves in a wheelchair or needing access to the second floor. But the same services that are available are available downstairs. So there's seating, there is full coffee service, a bathroom. So there's full services for anyone. There's handicap parking in the front of the building. So our intention is to make sure that the ADA law is complied with for sure.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to offer on this? City, have anything else to offer? Anything, Mr. Cuccinella? Mr. Quinones, anything? Okay. If you think of something else, I'll be happy to hear from you. Mr. O'Rourke?
Your Honor, I would just like to reiterate to the court that the building permit from 2015 was applied for by the respondents specifically for office and storage upstairs. All the concerns of accessibility were addressed back then. The move to use the upstairs for assembly purposes, gathering purposes, after the approval of the permit shows a willful and wanton disregard for the code and for what was approved. The other thing I would like to point out is I've still heard nothing about the city being able to go in and inspect and determine how the upstairs is being used. And I would say to the court that as long as there are tables and chairs up there, you are actively facilitating the use of that space for assembly. Simply placing some sort of a barrier and asking a young person who may be there to monitor that, I don't believe is adequate. And again, we're talking about ADA requirements here, so I think the matter warrants more than a simple little blockage of a sign or something.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anyone else needs to be heard on this point? All right. First, I'm going to find that the respondent has been properly served with notice of violation and notice of hearing as required by Section 162.12 of the Florida statutes. That's obvious. Obviously, the respondent appeared today, so obviously the notice was adequate. Certainly, the use of this property and the intention of the church in using it as it's using is laudable. they're to be commended for that. But the problem is, and that we can't get around, is it is in violation of of Section 3.3 of the Land Development Code. And that's probably aggravated by the fact that it is also in violation of the ADA regulations of the state. The two are sort of piggybacked onto one another. What I'm going to order is that the second floor be closed until and unless an application for its present usage is granted by the city of Oviedo. Now, when I say closed, I do mean that it will take more than a sign to keep people from going up there. You need to close that second floor for any use other than storage or office space until such time as the present use has been granted by the city. Should the respondent fail to do that, then I would entertain a hearing to impose a fine. At this point in time, I'm not imposing a fine, and I'm assuming the city has not requested any administrative cost. Is that correct?
Not at this time.
Okay. But it has to stay closed, and when I mean closed, I mean padlock may be an excessive term, but access has got to be denied to anyone except for office and storage space until it's been properly permitted. And that is my order today, and I will be entering a written order to that effect, and Mr. Cuccinella, Mr. Quinones will be getting, or Mr. Cuccinella will be getting copies of that, and I assume Mr. Quinones, he will share that with you. Anything else we need to consider on behalf of the city this point in time?
Would you, Your Honor, consider in the order allowing random inspection by either the building
Oh, yes.
fire marshal or code?
Yes. I do authorize the city to make entry upon the property for periodic routine inspections by the city or the fire marshal and the other agencies that Mr. The what? Building official. And I'm assuming Mr. Cuccinella and Mr. Kier, you have no problem with that? All right. That will be part of my order also. All right. Anything else on this matter to come before us today? All right. Thank you. I hope you get your waiver and your permit.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Rowland.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda today is case CE 16-000280. Involves All About Kids of Oviedo, Inc. at 387 West Broadway Street. The allegation, or the parcel ID is 09213130054A0000. The alleged violation is violation of Section 46-19 of the Code of Ordinances, and that is operating a business without having paid the local business tax. Just give me one moment, and then we'll proceed with that one. All right, who's presenting the case on behalf of the city?
Jim Oriel, sir, representing the city in this case.
All right, Mr. Royals, what do you have?
Your Honor, I have 12 pages of evidence I would like to submit to you in evidence, if I may approach.
Yes, you may.
I also have the same packet for the respondent.
All right, would you give the copy to the respondent? You said 12 pages?
Did I miscount?
No.
Did I miscount?
No, I'm
Yes, sir. And that horrible feeling.
I misremembered. right, Mr. Jackson, once you've had a chance to look at that, let me know. And all right, and what I'm asking you is, you'll be given a chance to speak. But I just want to know if there's any documents in here that you question the authenticity of. That is, you don't think that. Okay, then these 12 pages will be admitted as the city's exhibit number 1. Mr. Orioles, go ahead.
Yes, sir. The first document you have, Your Honor, is the property appraiser sheet showing that the property is owned by, in fact, owned by All About Kids of Oviedo Incorporated. The second 2 documents, for Your Honor, is the copy of the ordinance of the City of Oviedo, 46.19, 46.2, which authorize the issuance of the business tax receipt. The next document is a notice of violation that was mailed on February 23rd for a correction date of March 15th. The certificate of mailing is the next document. The green card where that document was received is the next document. The next is affidavit of violation, request for hearing that was sent, and the mailing receipt and the green card. And Mr. Jackson is here in attendance. If Your Honor will rule on the validity of the service in this matter, I can present the rest of the case.
Yes, I do find that the respondent has been properly served with notice of violation and notice of hearing as required by Section 162.12 of the Florida statutes. So we will proceed. Go ahead, Mr. Orioles.
Yes, sir. On every year, the process is the same. Our business tax department sends out renewal notices on or about July 15th, informing the businesses that their occupational or business tax is to be renewed and the amount of the renewal. We go out and we verify that these businesses are in fact still in business, and we make inspections. On October 15th, then late notices are sent to inform any business that they will have to incur a penalty if they do not pay the appropriate business tax. On November 13th, we went on physical inspection and we observed that the business was in fact in business. And upon there being no communication with Mr. Jackson or his staff, we re-inspected on February 12th. Still nothing had happened. We issued a notice of violation. This happened exactly the same as what happened last year. The same thing occurred last year. We went all the way up to the point of magistrate's hearing, and the day before the hearing, Mr. Jackson came and paid his fees and his delinquent fee. He paid the fees yesterday. So he paid the $368.75 that was due. That was the original $118 and change that would have been the normal renewal plus $250 delinquent fee, which is the maximum allowed by the state.
So how much was the tax?
He paid $368.75 yesterday.
And that included
that included the $250 delinquent fee, which is the maximum allowed by the state.
$250
delinquent fee.
Delinquency fee.
Yes, sir. However, Your Honor, in this case, and as allowed by ordinance, we are seeking for Your Honor to assess administrative costs to Mr. Jackson because the city has gone to considerable expense and time in getting this paid. And in both years, it was paid the day before the magistrate's hearing. We had done all the legwork, all the clerical work, all the research and everything else, and Mr. Jackson came in the day before the hearing and paid.
And how much administrative cost?
I have 2 worksheets, Your Honor, the last 2 sheets in front of Your Honor.
Okay.
Staff time came to $185.73. Benefit calculation was $55.74. The hearing, approximating Your Honor's time, and is $56.07. Postage was $14.38. The total, and verified by the worksheet here, is $311.92. This is the same calculation we use when citizens come before council and want a fine waived or reduced. We use the same calculations in the same worksheet that we use for that, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, and who is appearing on behalf of All About Kids? All right. And again, this is
Mr. doing
Mr.
this, so bear with me.
You're David Jackson.
I'm David Jackson with All About
What's your
Kids.
relationship to All About
I am
Kids?
the CEO director.
Okay. All right, Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
As he said, every year that they are mailed out, that's incorrect. I took over in 2006 and never got anything from the city until I approached them. I want to say, you correct me if I'm wrong, 2012, 2013, for an unrelated requesting a permit type thing. That's when I was made aware. So we've already
What year was that?
We'd already been operating 10 years without this. We are accredited, so we're exempt from taxes, from property taxes. I was made aware of this recently, this being the second year. In fact, when I did pay last time, the reason I was late paying and up until this, almost to this point, was because not only did I pay the arrears, get that caught up, but I also paid for the next year. Okay? So they didn't need to mail me out another one on that year either.
Okay, I'm missing something.
Okay,
Last-
I purchased a place in 2006.
Okay.
I never got anything from the city for 6 years, 7 years. Never. I approached them, and then that's when I was made aware of this responsibility.
So you purchased it in
2006, yes, Your Honor.
2006, and you're saying that
Corporation,
the
yes.
first, how many years?
They could probably help you more than that. I mean, everything they said is truthful. I'm not arguing with anything they said.
Okay.
But I'm by memory, I'm going to say 2013.
Okay.
And then that's when I caught it all up. And it took me a while because of the recession to get it all cut, plus pay ahead, in which I did. So this is not a subsequential offense. I paid ahead another year.
Well,
I
what
caught
year
it up
was
the
that?
first time.
What
Right.
year was that?
They can help you more with that. I want to say 2013, and I will confer to them and let them tell you. They've got better
So-
records than I do.
So in 2013, you paid also for 2014,
I'm assuming that's the right year, then yes. So I paid ahead.
okay?
And I came in yesterday, no problem. I'll pay what I owe, pay the $250. I wasn't going to show up today. But then Mr. O'Rourke, I met with him. He happened to step in when I was making the payment to Jim there and said he's going to ask for administrative fees. And it's hard enough for me to pay this as it is, to attack on more, because I've already paid the maximum late fine of $250. It's basically just free money. And the reason I haven't been able to pay this is because for 2 years I've been trying to get a contract, a federal contract with the federal government and with 4C, child care for children. And they have required me to raise my standards of teachers. They've required me to raise my standard of pay. They've required me to put in extra shade, which I work with Mr. Strong over at Strong Construction. So I've had the last 2 years I've been trying to get this contract, and there's only 3 other centers in the whole county, Sonoma County, that got this contract. So it's really good for the community. So what I'm trying to say here is I'm more good to the community than I am a detriment. But during that time, I've had to borrow money from my in-laws to make payroll, and mortgages and payroll had to come first. We just started seeing the money come in from the federal government. Early this week, I had to turn children away. Our summer camp program is already full. Things are doing better, but I still have obligations. And putting on more fees and stuff like this is only going to hurt me to get back to where I need to be. But these are all steps the federal government required us to have in place before they would give us any money, before they would give us any children. And it benefited. Now, I'm sure you've read the articles. It now costs more to send your school to preschool than it does to college. I'm the only center that's trying to keep those prices manageable for a lot of our families here. And we're only able to do it with the government's help. But it's taken a lot of me to get this going and a lot of stressful nights trying to get the money. So that's why. And now they're wanting to tack on more, and it's just going to make it harder for me.
Did you, in July of 2015 get a notice of renewal from the city?
I may have. I don't recall. I may have, but I do not recall.
When that comes into the office, who handles
Well,
that?
there's several people where I work in there, and so does my assistant, and sometimes I have an evening staff, Carla.
Did you get in October of 2015, did you get the late notice?
That I may have. I did get a notice. I do remember getting a certified mail, and I think I do remember getting a notice even prior to that. Like,
Okay.
I'm not arguing with anything.
And
you're
last
saying.
year, was it the same thing? Did you get notice last year in July?
I don't
of
think
2014?
so. I don't think so, because I'd already prepaid. I don't remember seeing that one, no, sir. And this is not a subsequent year either, because I prepaid.
Well, if you had prepaid, first off, the taxes we're talking about, Mr. Oyles, are taxes for 2016?
Yes, we're just talking about the current year. I just mentioned to let you know why we requested it. It was the same thing, exactly the same thing happened last year. 2006, we're not interested in that. Mr. Jackson received notice in February, a notice of violation. I gave him until March 15th to sign for, he rise the Supreme Court. That's our contention.
Okay. But where I'm confused, I seem to hear you saying that you had paid ahead for last year, and I hear you saying that's not the case.
It may not have been for this year I paid ahead for, but it might have been 2015 I paid ahead for. So I didn't get a notice for that year. So I'm trying to say, they're trying to say this is subsequential. This is not. This did not happen last year.
We canceled the magistrate's hearing for Mr. Jackson last year in April when he came the day before the hearing and paid.
I would like to see that record. That would be one thing I would contest, because I don't think it was last year.
But we're not asking for any monetary fines for that.
Yeah,
We're not
okay.
asking anything
But-
about that. What we're asking for is administrative costs that cost us this year,
And when you say this year, what taxable year are we talking about?
2015, 2016.
Okay, give me the dates that begins and ends, Mr. Royals.
October 1st.
10/1.
And September 30, 2016.
Okay. All right. Mr. Jackson, anything else?
This is not a subsequent year. This did not happen last year. It might have been. It might have been the previous year's taxes. But I know that I worked with a lady in the department and paid ahead a year. So, and again, I'm not contesting it. It's just this money would create a hardship where I've had to scrimp and everything. That's why I couldn't pay it to begin with. And I'm just, I've already got $250 in a fee. I wouldn't even be here except for this extra money. I know by law they can have it, but this is my first time before you, and I'm asking for a little bit of leniency. That's a lot of money. That's almost as much money as I've already paid. It's almost double.
I guess what puzzles me, Mr. Jackson, is you did in March apparently get a notice.
Yes.
Did you not? And you admit that you got that.
Your Honor, it's the money factor.
Why didn't you pay once you got that notice?
I had
until
mortgages.
Until yesterday.
I have 2 mortgages and payroll, and no money from the government and to help yet, because we had to raise our pay for it. And this is all good for Oviedo. We had to raise our standards for our teachers. We had to raise our pay. We had to do a lot of work, which I've used local people to do. It's all been good for Oviedo, but it put me in a bind. I mean, a real financial bind. I was carrying this all on my own. That's why I couldn't pay it. But now the federal government, they sent us $20,000 worth of furniture and supplies and materials, and now the cash has come in. They're now giving me kids, and they're now giving me cash. That's why I was able to come and pay. But I've got so many people, not just the city here, that I've got to pay now. And this creates a hardship, because I have been scrimping for 2 years trying to get this program into play. And we're one of only 3 senators in all of Seminole County that got it. I think that deserves an applaud.
All right. Anything else?
I just ask for leniency.
All right. Anyone else? All right. It doesn't appear to be any question but that All About Kids was late in paying its taxes this year. And what bothers me most about that is that even after an additional notice in March, that it wasn't paid until the day before this hearing. I understand that when you start adding delinquency fees and you start adding administrative costs, it gets expensive. But if my calculations are correct, if you'd simply paid it on time, it would have cost you, what, a little more than $100? It seems to me that the simple solution is to make sure your office is organized and pay it on time. By paying it the day before the hearing, that causes the city and the taxpayers to incur costs. They have the cost of this hearing today. They have their office personnel. They have the fees associated with this hearing. So I'm sympathetic to you financially, but in all candor, Mr. Jackson, it's a problem that's been created by your organization. You would have only had to expend about $110, $111, $108, somewhere in that range, had you paid it when it was due. And because this is the second year, this cannot continue year to year. So I am going to award $311.92 in administrative cost. And that's got to be paid within 30 days. Within 30 days. So that would be, today is the 28th. Let's give it a date certain. By midnight of May 28th, it has to be paid.
Do it for the last working day of next month, because that's when I get my funds.
All right, we'll make it May the...
Whatever the last working day is next month.
Well, what's the last day of May? 30th or the 31st? 31st? All right, by midnight of May the 31st, it must be paid. And the order that you will receive will tell you where it has to be paid, but let me go through that now so that there's no question. All right, the fine imposed by this order shall be paid at 320 Alexandria Boulevard, first floor of the City Hall Annex at the Utility Finance Department, the administrative cost. And that will be part of the order. But I urge you to avoid this problem in the future, Mr. Jackson, because I agree with you, it's a lot of money. And with any small business, I understand the burden, but it's a burden that you're placing on yourself, and it seems to me unnecessarily so. All right, anything else to come before the board today? The hearing officer today? All right, then we are adjourned.